Sandor Earl, thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's first episode back with you. Pretty pumped. So I've been excited to have you on for a few weeks. I've been speaking to a couple of mates to try to get you on. So glad to get you here. I did want to start the convo though with like grand final. Just come off winning the NRL, big party period, and into retirement. Like it's been a big few months for you.
It has.
How's it all feeling?
Well, I can tell you right now, we certainly partied. I enjoyed myself. I was actually stoked for the new year because it was a bit of a new year, new me moment.
Yeah.
Got a few things I'm doing. Signed up for a boxing fight, so
amazing.
It's been a weird transition. I'm back into pre-season, the one thing I was trying to escape. But yeah, mate, what an experience! Like winning the Premiership, being a part of that in such a weird time. Like it was so in-house, the whole experience, because we were in a bubble. Really only friends and families and staff were around us. The whole grand final. It was probably one of the most unique, but one of the most special. And asking other boys who'd been there already, they agreed because there was no media, there was no external noise. It was just the boys getting around each other, experiencing the whole moment. You remember everything. You felt everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, we enjoyed a beer or 1,000.
Yeah, I bet. I do want to dabble into that. But like, so what was the hub like for you? How long were you away for and where were you predominantly based?
So I think when it first happened, we had a little break, probably 6 weeks off. Like everyone, we were just doing our own thing around Melbourne. And then we ended up going to Albury because we had to get out of Melbourne so we can go to New South Wales. So we went there, we stayed in a hotel. Bus came in, took us to training. It was like so serious, you know what I mean? And then we were allowed to come back. Then all of a sudden, bang, Melbourne kicked off again and we got to go to Sydney. I just moved into a new apartment like a week before.
Shit.
And then they were like, we've got to go. So you pack your bags. You thought you were going for a week, 2 weeks. Then we're moving to the Sunshine Coast. And you kind of like, I don't mind it. Like I'll adapt. And that was sort of our theme. Yeah. Went to the sunny coast and like, it's not too bad. Now we're in Queensland. We could do what we want for a good like month, 6 weeks. So it was mad. We were living in the resort. We could go to cafes, cruise around, do whatever. And you're always a little bit grateful. So it was fine. And then we went into lockdown for probably 3 to 4 months. Yeah. Again, not challenging compared to what our friends and family in Melbourne were experiencing. Main thing was the sun was shining every day. So you got up and there was just a good vibe and you had a lot of purpose because you had football. So, mate, it wasn't all bad. I think we shared the hub with like 2 or 3 AFL teams. But for us, geez, we just got so close as a group and we were able to just focus just all in on the footy and the results sort of showed.
Do you reckon that kind of environment helped you? Like being in a culture
definitely.
like Storm where it's already positive as it is, but moving into something where you have to be closer and more tight-knit, do you reckon that propelled you?
100%. And I mean, people have started to allude to like that's why we won the Premiership. Like that's ridiculous, but it definitely had a huge impact on. It was just tunnel vision for us. Like all we did was focus internally on what we're doing. We really had no external noise, which we may be used to. Yeah. I remember telling someone on the grand final week in particular. Now for Penrith, they're a rookie team, hadn't been to a grand final in a long time. Most of the players in the team hadn't, but for us, it was just like. It was just another game. I think 15 people turned up to our grand final open training event. There was no hype. Boys weren't, and not a negative thing, but the boys weren't like, oh my God, we're going to the grand final. It was like, we're going to win and we're just going to get the job done. Yeah. And you could see that in the first minute. Before you knew it, we were up 20-0 and it was just like, that was the difference I felt.
I was about to say, there's been a few people that have said this that I've like heard talk about the grand final, but definitely when I watched it, like when Storm ran out, it was just like, very relaxed, like business focused. Yeah. Where Penrith came out, it was like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, and it's like, well, we're at a grand final, you know?
Yeah. So you could kind of sense that there was like, I guess that feeling and expectation that Storm knew what they had to do to get there, which was, the first half was unbelievable.
Yeah, mate, it was clinical.
It was clinical. Like it was almost so clinical that it was like the second half was like, a bit up in the air and there was so much breathing space. You knew you were going to win.
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of that, so then you obviously won that, which was a pretty special moment, and a lot of documentations come out of like the change room, which was fucking sick. Like we finally got insight into how teams celebrate, and like the Storm boys just embraced it, like drinking beers, posting videos. I think you did like an Instagram live.
Yeah.
Like we don't see that shit as fans, so that was pretty cool. Like that must have been a bit of a special experience in there.
Yeah, it was, and it's funny because you've got to walk that fine line of like you're trying not to contradict everything we're about at the Storm, but slowly, everything's evolving from bloody Craig Bellamy down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He now gets it. He gets that like videoing things is great to utilize later on, and he's a little bit more down to earth. And everyone understands that the boys have personalities, the boys have personas, and everyone wants to see that. Give insight, show what we're all about, and there was a lot of probably American sport influence.
Yeah,
but going live in the change rooms, the ski goggles, the champagne, like it was epic, and I sort of took that upon myself. Obviously, I didn't get an opportunity to play, but I was like, boys were so keen to, and I knew we were going to win. I made Premiership vintage T-shirts, which caused a bit of
yeah, prerequisite. You did that before.
Yeah, I did. I paid for that, and I was going to do it anyway. But yeah, I was confident.
I love that.
It caused a bit of backlash with a couple of licensees who had the rights to and everyone's wearing it. But mate, just what an awesome time! And as you would have seen in the change rooms, like boys just celebrating with each other and the playing group. And I just remember one moment, and it's different, but people understand. Cameron Smith in ski goggles was just spraying champagne.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, oh, that's so cool.
If he's embracing it, then why can't anyone else?
That's what I mean. And everyone, and going against what's potentially known as that Australian culture, where we sort of try and chip those things down, but everyone wants that insight. Everyone wants a larrikin. We got some of the best in our team: Cameron Munster, Brandon Smith.
Yeah.
And just embracing them and letting players be themselves and letting everyone celebrate and have a good time. Sort of trying to flip the culture, and I think it's making waves a lot amongst the boys. They're trying to put themselves out there, and ultimately, if the fans embrace that stuff, it's going to come back to them.
100%, man.
Tenfold.
100%. That's why I actually think American sport's so good with their entertainment and like their the UFC and the NBA, like the behind the scenes sort of footage you get makes you connect to the athletes and stuff 100%. So much more. And there was also the Champ Cheese video that went viral. Like that was like that stuff wouldn't happen if you didn't open it up. Right?
I remember filming that, just going, "Oh, this is going to be so
good." And it blew
up. And then the boys wanted cigars, and all the boys were on the cigars. It was just like so funny. And then, mate, I went to Byron with Brandon, and like it was crazy. He was like, he's the biggest thing in the NRL. He's still right up there, but it was just chaos. Byron, just the Champ Cheese.
How many days were you there for?
So we went there after the grand final for like 6-7 days.
Oh, worse for
man, it was full on. And then I actually just I was like, I'm going. I booked myself an Airbnb by myself for 3 days. I just needed to shut it down.
Body wanted to shut down.
I told everyone I was leaving. I was just like, nah, just need to shut it down. Got a little Airbnb in the bush and just relax.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. I guess because I'll get to some of the stuff you're doing right now, because it's, you mentioned, and we spoke the other day on the phone, you're like, you haven't slowed down at all since you've retired, or effectively retired, but just being a player on the outside of the grand final, like, and I catch you just already, is like, you're probably a pretty good teammate to have who puts the team first, which is not always easy as an athlete when big moments are there, because you obviously want to fucking play and you want to be a part of it, and you probably were it's your last year and you're like, this is a big moment.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of separate, or how did you feel you separated like your own selfish needs to like, fuck, this is awesome, and just still embrace it as best you could?
It's a running battle. It's a credit to myself and my self-awareness, but also the culture I'm a part of. I went there with some big goals and some big aspirations when I first went to the Storm. And that year before I came back in 2017, like, I can't tell you how hard I worked to just turn up to pre-season in good nick. And it was unbelievable the way I rocked up. The first 2 weeks, I was taking the piss. And then to do my ACL in the pre-season is just cruel,
Yeah, it's harsh, right?
But so it kind of knocked me back, but I still had the confidence that I can contribute to the team, and was able to do that the next year and play in a semi-final. But at the end of the day, I understood that I was going there for sort of different reasons. There's plenty of other NRL teams that maybe weren't going as well or didn't have the players ahead of me that I could have gone to, but I wanted to be a part of that culture, and I knew that if I had one last chance to see how good I was going to be, it was at the Storm. And I don't even know how to put it into words, what I learned, what I experienced, and the values that are now instilled in me, and the things that I can take into business and relationships and networking. It's priceless. So that year for the Premiership, Suliasi Vulivanu, Josh Adokar, two of in my opinion, best wingers in the game. You got to understand where you're at, understand the reality of the situation. And look, I want to play and I'm training my ass off. But you start to have different priorities and goals. It's like, okay, how can I continue to better myself in my own time and my extras? And then how can I continue to challenge the other boys so they're killing it and humming. And then ultimately you just start to accept, and the hub would have helped this, and our success would have helped this, but you start to go, all right, look, we just want to win as a team.
Yeah, this is my role.
Exactly. And that's a big thing at the Storm. Know your role, honour your role. And it's just so well driven in that you just embrace it, you buy into it. And that year, that's exactly what I focused on. And then the closer we got to the season, I understand my role in the team.
Yeah.
And you just embrace that. If an opportunity comes up, you've got to stay ready. You've got to be making sure you're doing everything you possibly can. But if I can prepare, ultimately they're like my brothers, my best friends. If I can prepare them as best as possible, and we get to enjoy that moment at the end, then I'm satisfied. So it's not easy. It comes with its challenges because, as you said, like, hey, I want to play. I want to be a part of this, right? And you're sitting there like, fuck. But what outweighs it is, your best mate. You see, get to experience in that moment and see the smile on his face. You've got to take some satisfaction out on that, and ultimately just focus on that.
Yeah, the brotherhood, and I think that's a very mature view. It's probably. You're probably more of a tenured player, at least experienced and understand the rigors of the game to comprehend at that point of your career. Like, I can effectively do this role. Whereas if it was 18 or 19-year-old Sandor Earl, you probably would have been headbutting walls, right? Like dragging heels a little bit, 100%. Which a lot of young boys could probably relate to. So I think it's a pretty cool way to be. Obviously, since retirement and coming off the booze of Byron, you've jumped into a boxing fight. And you've got a whole bunch of other businesses and things that you've started in lockdown. So your world's moving pretty quick right now. Like,
yeah, it is. It definitely is. I mean, I tried to, with the footy, everyone always asks me, it was a bit of a rip the Band-Aid moment because it's never easy when physically you're capable of playing. Why didn't you go to this team? Why didn't you stay at the Storm? Why didn't you do this and that? But I made the decision based on, I'm only 31, but I just wanted to dedicate that next chunk of my 30s to really chasing something that's, I've got a lot of aspirations outside sport, and I know that's not always common, and I'm probably pretty lucky to have those passions in different areas, but that's something that I applied myself and focused on the things that I was interested in and made sure I had an open mind during my sporting career. Granted, missing 4 or 5 years out of sport.
Do you think, and we'll touch on obviously that, but do you think that period out has given you that perspective more so?
Yeah, I was always thinking, like, always had that little bit of a entrepreneurial mindset. Like, I was always thinking, how can I do this? How can I do that? How can I leverage off my situation? But then that really forced me into, okay, you got to do something. And I'm not overly educated. It's just that I have some ideas, understand what I believe is how to talk to people, customer service and relationships. Yeah. And then just dove into business, just did it. I just got to do it. And was really passionate. And that came through in my conversations, my customer service, the way I, my timelines around getting shit done. And then ultimately I've had some success in business, really not off the back of knowing too much. It's really off the back of that. And then that's just snowballed. And I'm lucky that the things I seem to be passionate in, I sort of sponge. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. But yeah, I definitely think that forced me to take the leap and really get involved in some stuff. But that's it. Footy's all encompassing, being a professional athlete. So the opportunity to chase some stuff outside of that, I'm super excited about. So that's what awesome, I need to tell people. It's like, I'm really excited about the next chapter. It's not something that's like a burden or holding me back.
Yeah, I mean, like, physically, you've walked in here and could barely fit in the door. So you could probably fucking run through a couple more seasons if you wanted to.
Yes.
But just when I mentioned before about, like, your life's pretty busy and hectic right now. So you've got, like, 3 little businesses you're running. You've got, like, obviously your fitness stuff that you do, I think an F45 franchise.
Yep.
An e-commerce business with your vintage tees, and then you're mentioning before off air the sort of basketball sort of vintage cards or NBA cards that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you're managing a few things, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. There's some bigger picture stuff I want to do in the fitness space that'll become more prominent as the year goes on. That's super exciting.
Yeah.
Potentially having a big role in launching something in Australia and then taking it overseas is my ultimate goal. Yeah. Landing in the States. And then, the e-commerce stuff is really cool. Like, you always, if you're on the outside, you're like, that it's a bit of financial freedom if you can nail this. Like, this 100%. Is what you want. I want to be anywhere when I want, mobile. Doing what I want. That's the key. But it comes with some work, but you just got to understand the game.
Yeah.
And going through quarantine, it started with the sports cards. A couple of us got involved. Gary Vee sort of pushed me into it, really. I'm like, investment, sports cards, making money, bing, 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 I'm in. Yeah. And then I like NBA, got a few of the boys in. And then basically what we were doing is, through way of influence, we were blowing up other people's pages and break sites and businesses. And when I was like, I know how to start a business, I said to the boys, mate, let's just do this ourselves.
Yeah.
So we did it. We kicked it off, started a company, just started doing it, and literally learnt as we went.
Yeah.
There's no perfect moment. Just get it done, have a crack. And these e-commerce models for me, now I feel like I've got a bit of a template. Nail some influence. You got 4 footy players, beauty, off to a great start.
Yes, perfect.
So you can do whatever you want.
Which footy players are in
Ryan
this video?
Pappenhausen,
Yep.
Kenny Bromwich, and Jerome Hughes.
Oh, so your Storm teammates.
Yeah. So lovely, like
great group.
It's going to be it's
All
always
big
gonna
followers,
be sweet.
all
Exactly.
superstars, right?
Exactly. It's always going to be sweet. And then content and marketing, mate. We just do real cool content. We make noise, and you pretty much can put everything on that pillar of content and marketing. I believe. Like, I honestly feel like I could sell spoons and make it cool.
Yeah, 100%.
If you can get a little bit of an influence position, and then couple that with good content marketing. And now I'm trying to understand the paid advertising game and trying to bring that all together. And did the same thing with Vintage Mode, just made some noise.
So is this one of the tops?
This is one of them. It's just a little champ cheese top. This is a little sample one that we did, but
epic, bro.
it blew up.
Man.
But yeah, it's just good fun. Like, it's the business model's amazing. We don't hold any stock. It's low output, low startup, but really we just do cool content. We do stuff on trend, and we just keep the hype, and it's so fun. But I'm really, if I could clone myself, there's so many things I want to do.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm a bit like that. It's funny, right? Because I was always like, when I finished sport, and a bit like you, probably like what you felt were your best years of sport, you didn't really follow. I mean, yours were obviously taken away from you, a bit different to mine. But in saying that, when I look back now, I'm like, fuck, a lot of the fundamental traits of the athlete has actually really helped for the business side.
Yes.
Like that hustle, that positivity, the people aspect. I mean, the amount of freaking hard conversations you had as an athlete with coaches and media and everything is like nothing you'll probably have to some business conversation, because that was much harder.
Yeah.
And I think it really prepares you. So it's pretty cool to hear that side of your story.
I talk about that all the time, actually. Like, because the conversation is a lot about, it's always like quite a negative worry about like, what are you going to do after football? And I was like, it's just like, just relax a little bit, calm down, like find something you're actually passionate about,
100%.
but understand that either in the corporate world or as an employee, like you've just come from playing professional sport. Like you're competitive as fuck.
100%.
You're driven. You apply yourself to structure and routine, like you're respectful. You've got all these unbelievable values and traits that any employer would die to have. So just relax and understand that some of the values that you have that you can apply to any job are going to be well sought after.
And I think more businesses are starting to conform to that, to be realised actually it's more people orientated.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Rather than the uni degree. And that's not to discredit universities.
No.
But so one of the other area that obviously that's got you to this point is the NRL aspect and the rugby career. And you played, and I want to go back all the way back to when you started playing rugby league, because you played rugby quite young, I think, as a kid back in Sydney. So can you talk us through a bit of the childhood journey of what got you interested in sport and how that progressed?
Yeah. And my mum, so I've got a single mum, but she definitely doubles as the mum and dad.
Yeah.
So she's
Shout
the
out.
crazy dad. Yeah. She's the crazy dad in movies, but she's my mum.
Love that.
Yeah, so I started playing when I was 3 years old, which is pretty young, and she was my first coach for the first couple of years of the team, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I think she loves the sport more than I do. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's a hard worker, hard woman, but I definitely took on a couple of those traits, which really helped me throughout my life. But just always had a love for sport, played everything. We lived in Sydney. Melbourne, I feel, is, bar living out in the suburbs, I'm being pretty condensed. I live in the city, but Sydney's quite open. Like if you live in the city, the inner suburbs, the eastern suburbs, everything's quite open. So we never had a car, so it was public transport.
Right.
So it's pretty crazy. Like I'd be playing sport every day, just going all over the city and just all around Sydney. And Mum would take me everywhere. So pretty nuts to think about it. And I guess I developed a bit of street smarts and awareness pretty early. Like we lived in Woolloomooloo. It's a pretty rough area back in the day, in housing commission. And this story always it just personifies everything. Like I was 7 years old, walking to King's Cross Station, catching a bus just to go to school in like year 2.
You're kidding.
And I do that every day by myself. But so that doesn't seem like, it seems normal. But now I think about that and I'm like,
Oh,
Can you
you
imagine
ate?
some 7-year-old like doing that? You'd be like, what the?
Yeah, dude, you
know
want to
what I mean?
lift? Like, that's not...
It would be so weird, but yeah, that's sort of laid the platform. But yeah, just love sport. Did everything I could. Boxing was a big passion around 12 years old. Mum got me into that. She was really passionate about me doing that. Did that for a couple of years, and even in those years, that was like me getting up at 5, me traveling out to Campbelltown to go to school, which is a 2-hour journey. Coming home, boxing, walking up the road. Mum would meet me at the hill at 9 o'clock, grab my backpack, I'd go inside, and then I'd do it all again. But so it was just
No.
built off like her influence, a love for sport, and then me just doing my best. But it was good. It was good fun.
Yeah, that's pretty epic. And shout out to your mum, mate.
Yeah,
That's all the single mums out there. That's
100%.
awesome. So yeah, we touched on, obviously you got a fight coming up, and this comes back to where I'm like, well, you're probably not too far into the ring because you did box quite a bit as a kid. So and I think I've heard you say before that was like a real passion of yours too. So what sort of point did that become a bit clearer to you that like actually league or footy, I should say, is what I want to play and pursue more than boxing?
I was just in love with the sport. I was a big Roosters fan. It's really what I put majority of my time into. And then around 13, you start to there's some teams that you start to make, and I'm involved in those. And there's just a bit of a pathway where you're like, I'm not by no means the most talented kid, and being recruited left, right, and the other, but I was just had a really deep rooted self belief that I'm gonna make it, and sort of awesome. That drove me the whole way through. Again, you make a couple of teams along the way. It's a little bit different to the experience. It's probably more aligned with soccer than AFL.
Yeah.
Because you just keep chipping away through the age groups, and then you get to a point where you're at school, it's semi-serious. There's an under-20s comp, and then it's like you get contracted. Yeah, so that's sort of the pathway. Yeah. And I just chipped away, had my ups and downs, but always just built everything on being the hardest worker in the room. And no matter how many times I got told or had the speech that none of you guys are probably going to make it, I was just like, it's not going to be me.
That's awesome.
That's only internal. It's just my self-belief, and where that came from, I don't know, but it's always been a real strong point that I've been able to utilise.
Have you always had that, like that inner confidence?
Yeah,
because I think that's a hard tool to have as a kid. Like,
yeah, and you get knocked down. Don't get me wrong.
All the time.
That gets challenged, but yeah, I just always was like, nah. And to be honest, actually, I enjoyed that. I liked that. It actually fueled me. Like, tell me I can't.
Yeah.
Actually, please do that, So tell me I can't do something, or tell me I'm not going to make it, because that's just going to make me want to work harder or spur me on. So
yeah.
I think just being immersed in those environments full of adversity and setbacks from such a young age, it's a mental muscle, and you just start to build this resilience, and you're like, sweet, bring it on. And you have that competitive drive towards everything, rather than letting something knock you back and head down and being a bit, I suppose, it's just putting you in a position where you're like, oh, I'm not keen, or it knocks your confidence around. Yeah. I sort of utilised it. Was like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah, that's good. You went the right way with it, which is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
A few people have to go the wrong way to understand. Actually, no, there's two parts here, as opposed to just negative kind of thinking. So as you kind of progress through the footy ranks as a junior and the high school sort of, which is relatively competitive across New South Wales. When did you kind of start to get wind? Obviously, you had this inner belief, I'm going to play NRL, but when did you start to get wind that the Roosters were kind of keen on you, and that sort of was going to become a pathway for you to get your first NRL?
Well, I went through the whole system. So you go like 13s team, 14 team, 16s, 18s, blah, blah, blah. At 16, I made the team. Now, the 18s team, some guys are playing that for 2 years.
So is this like the Roosters kind of?
Yeah, Roosters, like Harold Matthews, SG Ball, that's what it's called.
Right.
So if you make the SG Ball under 18s and under 17s, you're a bit of a big dog. At school one day, I was 17, I tore my ACL. So that was quite a weird experience. Doesn't have the same ramifications that it does now, because I was like, didn't really know what it entailed. But did my ACL, was out at Campbelltown, sort of limped home, caught the bus train. I was like, this isn't good.
You've walked home. Huh?
Yeah. Just had
Holy
to
shit.
Yeah. And then credit to mum, she took me to the best surgeon at the time.
Yeah.
Worked her magic, maybe a little bit of tears, and got me over the line, got the Medicare and got it sorted, but got the surgery. And I went to a private school at the time, and they sent me all my homework after like 6 to 8 weeks. And I was just like, Mum, I'm not doing this. Like, it was literally ridiculous. And she was like, all right, you can have the year off school. Maybe we'll get a bit of a job, go to the gym. She took me to a dietitian, just like all the boxes, and 69 kilo kid who was sort of playing footy with a big heart come back the next year, I'd limp up on my crutches, go to the gym, train, just fully get involved in that environment, eating, crazy diet, and come back the next year at 83 kilos, and I was just a different player. So that was my first big roller coaster wave where it was going so well. One of the biggest adversities I'd faced in my life related to sport, and then all of a sudden it turned out to put me on a path where it was one of the best things that had ever happened. And that, unfortunately, there's been a lot of those ups and downs. It would have been nice if it was a bit of a straighter path, but you go through that once, twice, 3 times, and the next time it happens, you're like, I'm going to be good here.
Yeah, I got this.
Grit my teeth, put my head down, have a good attitude, get through this, and there's going to be something around the corner. So it's one of those double-edged swords where you're like, I don't want to put myself in these positions where things fucking go wrong, or I get injured, or I make a mistake, or I fail. But ultimately, the more I put myself in these positions, the more lessons I get, the more I improve, the better person I become, and it's just growth. But you gotta put yourself out there, and you gotta just understand and embrace that good things come off the back of it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you can get through it. So just that sort of cycle around failure and adversity, if you can embrace it, the earlier you can embrace it,
mate,
you
definitely could have a business of public speaking, literally talking about going through adversity, because we'll go through your journey. But that's a pretty amazing story in itself, because if you think about it, you were 17 at the time, did your ACL, you've said no to school, and you've pretty much decided, and with your mother's support, I'm going to the house of pain to get myself back, diet, fucking gymming every day. You're probably doing some part-time work. So you live in a man's life to try and get a pro contract or get to that point. And then not long after that, you would have been 17, 18.
Yeah.
You would have made your NRL debut. So it's pretty close to...
Yeah. So I went back to school the next year, different school, Matraville Sports High School, which is basically Souths and Roosters, just this little super team. But so funny, going to a sports high school after going to a private college. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember rocking up. We used to wear blazers, high socks. If I had my shirt untucked, lunchtime detention.
Yeah.
I never had a lunchtime for
hair,
3 months. Oh, mate.
Yeah.
I rocked up first day. A couple of the lads are sitting in the front of the class. It's 30-degree shirts off. Just going, miss, we're not putting our shirts on. I was like, where am I?
Yeah.
Never did homework, never did an assignment. This probably makes the school sound bad, but it was awesome. It was a sports high school. We had rugby league periods during school. It was unbelievable. But for the growth in terms of sport, crazy. But I went back, did year 11, finished, and then went into a professional environment with a contract worth nothing, $5,000.
Yeah.
But it was the
That'd be illegal now, surely.
Yeah, it would be.
Absolutely illegal.
It would definitely would be. But
so what year is this?
That was so 2007 finished school. 2008 was my first experience in top squad environment.
Okay, and then you made your debut. Was it 08 or 09?
09.
09.
Yeah.
So you were a Roosters fan growing up, weren't you?
Yeah,
so
it was
that
pretty
must have been pretty surreal,
pretty
making
cool,
your debut for them.
Freddie Fittler, he's the New South Wales coach. He was the Roosters coach then. Didn't have the best coaching career with the Roosters, but for him to give me my debut, it's cool. It's great to do these podcasts because you sort of start to think back, and you reflect, just in hindsight, because you dismiss all this stuff.
Yeah,
you know
man.
What I mean? So
you're in a Ferrari through
think
life.
back and you're like, fuck, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
because you know I mean?
he's probably he's in a Hall of Famer of NRL, and he's the one going, this kid's good enough.
He was my childhood hero. You know what I mean? So when you lay all that out, you're like, you got to take a second.
Pinch yourself,
right? I said this I did a little post about my retirement. I was like, how lucky am I that this one goal in life you set, your dream come true goal, and you achieve it. People don't experience that. Do you know what I mean?
Mate.
Very lucky to. And then when we talk about debut from my childhood hero with the club I love, come on, man. How good's that?
And you did something like that when you think about it, and touch wood, but in the first 20% of your lifetime. So it's imagine what you can do for the rest of it.
Very cool.
You've done a major achievement. And obviously you played a few games at the Roosters. And this was kind of the beginning of highs and lows for you in some regards, because you've gone to your boyhood club, you've got an opportunity. It's I'm a fucking first grade player, and then an incident on a night out, it's kind of which has led to obviously clearly being a false allegation. You've actually lost a contract.
Yeah, crazy.
And it's
crazy.
what the fuck, So that must have been a pretty, you would have been 18, 19?
19, pretty crazy experience. Debut, you go out, you have a few drinks, probably carrying on, fair play.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but the circumstances were pretty unique. Wasn't my fault, but in hindsight, the old any publicity is good publicity isn't always true.
100%.
In this respect, allegations of hitting a woman is not ideal.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that incident ended up being squashed, but there was a bit of damage done, to be honest. Like, I ended up getting to still play, but the powers that be of the club just weren't keen. And like you said, wow, what a shock. Like, I'm 19, I've just played first grade. I'm thinking, sweet, how good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm set up now for a bit. And then it's like, oh, we don't have a contract for you. And I was like, wow, fuck, man, that's an experience that not many people can say they went through. And it probably takes to get to this age and have this perspective, but to go, fuck, that's cool. Like, to be in that position and get there, mad.
It also shows you, like, when you put your head down, results come. Like, if you stay humble and focused despite shitty things happening, like,
And
good
it's just
things
an
still
example
come.
of the...
That's the first, like, one of the first or second or third
Yeah.
that you experience at that age. And as you said, you've been through a few of those now that give you that perspective that anything in life you can probably get through and put your, grit your teeth and stuff. So how long were you at the Panthers for? Was it a couple of years?
So, yeah, I was there. By the end of that year, my shoulders were, like, ruined. And I remember going to the doctor. Again, this would never happen in these days. So I remember going to the doctor, had the scans, and he was like, you need a double shoulder reconstruction. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm just killing it. I've just, like, come off the best period of footy. So I was kind of like, all right, I made a plan. I was just like, I'll do the preseason, had a mad preseason. And I was like, I'll go out, play, kill it, get a new contract. And then if I need the surgery, I'll get the surgery. So had a mad preseason, started going well in the trials. And then the shoulders were just busted. Like, could not tackle, could not push people away. And I was just like, oh no, this is getting obvious. Got dropped, come back in, got dropped, come back in. And I was like, by about just before mid-season, I was like, I'm going to need to get this done. Like, I'm just going to have to cop it.
Yeah.
They gave me another, like, little kiddies contract, and just to be like, we want to keep you, but you're injured. And then double shoulder reconstruction, bro, was so heavy. Yeah, 6 weeks apart.
Jesus.
It's a horrible experience.
So you're practically just, like, couldn't move.
Yeah, it was rubbish. Like, and it just changed my whole body as well. Like, at 18, 19, I'd put a lot of work in the gym, and I was a big power athlete, and then 6 months no weights, I looked like 12 years old. Like, it was so bad.
Yeah.
It sucked. And then just set me back, man. New coach the next year. First impressions count. Didn't really get a chance to do that. And then randomly got a call. Canberra is one of the clubs I tried to get to previously when I was trying to get to Penrith, so that I was put on their radar.
Okay.
And a ex-player that I'd played with said, Fernsy's keen to get you to Canberra. And I was like, mate, I'm keen. Like, I can't be in this environment anymore. It's toxic. I just need to change. And then before the June 30 deadline, went over on the Monday or the Tuesday, staying in a motel in Canberra. And they were like, oh, we're going to play you this Saturday. I was like, holy shit.
Wait, so what's the deadline? Has the season started by then?
Yeah, season started. But by June 30... there's a trade deadline, so you can go to another club before June 30. So we're at about just past midway of the season.
Right.
So I've gone over there. We're coming 13th. They're struggling a bit with the outside backs. I come in, strike off a partnership and friendship with my inside centre, Blake Ferguson.
Yep.
And we just go on this run and just took the piss, and we're just having the best time.
Because you were flying there.
Oh, mate, played the best footy of our life. We went from 13 to 6, made the major semi-final. We scored like 30 tries in 15 games.
Jesus.
It was the best.
Jesus, man.
So cool, so fun.
What'd you, I actually think I was at that's where I first came across your name, because I think I was living in the AIS residence when you were there.
Right.
So, yeah, that Canberra, I mean, the Raiders were an electric kind of franchise at the time.
So fun. We were young, you know?
Yeah, young. It's like a lot, I don't know why, a lot of players that were quite young, like there was like Josh Dugan.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other players' names that passed my mind that were there.
Yeah, Joel Thompson.
Joel Thompson was there. What was the winger's name? He's in the WWE now.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Vito.
Vito was there.
He just left before I come. Edric Lee. Anthony Milford was there. Had some good forwards. Josh Papali, all these guys. Jared Croker.
Yeah, crazy.
Very cool.
What I was leading to there was obviously the Raiders experience was a positive one. Electric young group. You probably feel like you're starting to come up in your career and have these awesome moments on the field. And then you're starting to get whispers of things that happened. I think you were at Penrith then. That obviously led and came out in the media and led to that 4 years suspension and that. So speak to us what the hell that was like for you whilst you're at the Raiders, how that came out, what that felt like.
Pretty crazy, bro. Like in 2011, during my injury, Stephen Dank, it's kind of easy to talk to people in Melbourne because they understand because of Essendon and that. So it's like a nice little segue. But yeah, 2011, he was a performance staff at Penrith Panthers. And then basically he was doing some stuff around hypoxic work and blood work. And we knew that he'd worked at Cronulla and I think like Gold Coast Suns and Manly. So he had a bit of reputation, bit of credibility, and they were like, I think he can help you out with your injury or whatever. So sat down with him, he seemed pretty sweet. He'd done all our blood work and stuff, explained to me about peptides, which no one knew at the time, amino acids and all the rest of it. And I was pretty sweet, pretty confident with it. Went through the process, and the one conversation that people highlight was that, like, oh, why didn't you go through the club or through the doctor? And I guess any athlete in the setting would be able to attribute that. I guess our doctors and our medical side of the club are pretty straight up and down. So although the question I was asked a million times, is this illegal? Is this sweet? And I got the answers that I needed. I guess it was just about like, hey, we're pushing the envelope. We're trying to get the best performance we can. So I felt comfortable. I went to a doctor that was off-site. The club paid for it. So everything, all the boxes were ticked for me. I checked it on the ASADA website. I got tested during the time and nothing happened. So yeah, naive maybe, but I felt pretty comfortable with the whole experience. Did I achieve much? Not really. And then that was it. Over a couple of month period, that ended, and then I started the new year and went to Canberra, and then 2 years later, sitting
So this
there.
happened 2 years before.
Yeah, 2 years later, bro. And it's not from a test or anything like that, because it wasn't a banned substance. So it's very unique circumstances, very strange. I'm sitting there after one of the trials, and on the media comes up, it's like darkest day in Australian sport, this like government presentation. And then I see Stephen Dank, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Uh-oh.
Like, what do you mean? Called my manager straight away. I was like, George, I know this guy. This is why. And he's like, oh, shit. And it was just like, just spiraled out of control. And there was layers to it. So, like, when it first came out, it was like, I'm not involved in this. Everyone separate themselves. Then a little bit more information would come out, and it's like, these clubs could be involved. Then it was like, these players. Then it was me. And this is all happening while I'm playing during the season.
So it was like tiered. Like almost like this has happened, then Dank, then some players, then clubs.
Yes.
And then your name.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like in one hit.
Nah. So information was drip fed. Oh, mate. Like, getting the end result and the backlash and all the rest of it was tough, but nothing compared to going through the experience of, like, couldn't tell anyone. So rocking up to training, and I'm a pretty knockabout bloke, but like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you being yourself? Or trying to play a game, and then getting to the point where your name's out and just getting hammered every game.
Yeah.
By the end of it, it was a relief. I was like, end it. I'm over it. Like, that was way harder than the experience at the end of it.
So this is what amazed me about this, because the club sent you there. So they funded that sort of engagement with Stephen Dank.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the club didn't send me to, like, they didn't, I sort of did it, but yeah, he was contracted by the club. Like, he was brought in by the
so
club.
It's a club. Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not like I went and seeked him. He was
No,
at the
that's
club.
what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, what am I supposed to do? And we know for a fact that whatever he did with me, he did at these other clubs.
Yeah.
So it's like, why am I to think I'm doing something wrong?
Yeah.
So weird.
Because there was an element of your suspension around, obviously, some of the supplements and stuff that he was giving you or taking, but then there was this element, which I hate this word because it's so not it, but trafficking.
Yeah, crazy.
And it's like, I've heard you speak about what that was in
madness.
terms, and it was literally you just like took it from A to B with no knowledge or no awareness of like anything around it. There was no monetary, there was no advance to your life or anything, but they still throwing the word trafficking.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's the one thing that will still frustrate me and haunt me to this day, because A, the definition of the word and term is not supposed to try and make an example out of someone in my situation.
Correct.
And B, it's bullshit. Like, to be handed down a 4-year suspension off the back of the reality of the situation, it's not fair. So it's a hard pill to swallow. I've obviously gotten over it, but what a crazy experience. I just hope that no one else has to experience that ever again.
I generally don't think that would happen now. I mean, obviously that's come out over time that those sort of drugs, like, they're not even like performance enhancing drugs and stuff like that. Like a peptide, for
it'd be
God's
so
sake.
different. I'd just go crazy on social media and just be like,
Yeah.
sweet, let's do it. I'll tell everyone everything that's going on, and let's let them dictate how you're going to handle this. But back in the day, it was never before seen.
Yeah.
Never before done. And it's crazy. It's not like the court of law, innocent until proven guilty.
No.
It's you're guilty, and then it's like beyond reasonable doubt, and it's all this other shit. And you can't even really fight for yourself. There's no real, like, the Court of Appeals is a joke. it's not even a face-to-face, and I dumped a heap of money and a heap of time into what was ultimately a waste. And I get it, it's black and white for them. They got a tough job to try and keep sport clean, but there was something bigger at play, whether it was political or I think considering the carry on about the whole topic and the subject, I think something had to happen, and scapegoat maybe, for lack of a better word, but tough experience. It's really unfortunate, especially the length of time, but hard to take it back because ultimately what it led to for myself and my situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it was almost like when you think back to that time, not that they tried to make an example of like you in that situation, but as I said before, I don't think that would happen now, that consequence. But then obviously there was all these other clubs involved, and you were pretty good at that time. Like even after it, like you really came out in the media and just freaking open and honest. Like you had nothing to hide because in your eyes you did nothing wrong. Like you copped the consequences, which I think people obviously then sort of started to shift their opinion of you and what happened. But then I think one of the other things that was interesting was like Cronulla were in the same boat, and the consequences they copped were like very different.
Yeah, crazy, man. Like, I mean, with the Cronulla thing, I was sympathetic to their situation because I was also under the belief that, well, who's at fault here? And I put the blame on Stephen Dank. With a full team like Cronulla being given and administered something that they believe was fine, they were just taking on this supplement program from, again, someone that they thought had credibility.
Yeah.
Not their fault. So I'm not looking to make judgment on them. There's a few key people there who it would have been nice if they handled it better and maybe came out and shared the same opinion. It would have helped everyone. But ultimately, I was happy with the low suspension they got, but it really didn't reflect well on my situation. It was quite disappointing.
Yeah. So you've obviously copped the treatment of 4 years. Heartbreaking because you're probably, fair to say, you're entering your peak of your powers and we're ready to unleash. What the hell did you do in those 4 years?
Like you said, it's one of those things I will look back on and I'll be like, fuck, what could I have achieved with footy? But hey, at the end of the day, that's what the perspective it gives you. Like, footy's not the be all and end all, and that's not to discredit it at all. Like, I love rugby league. I love what it's given me. I'm really passionate about the sport and everything involved, but it's not the be all and end all. Like, I've traveled the world, which is probably the best thing that you can do in life.
100%.
It's the greatest teacher.
100%.
You want to talk about perspective, that's the greatest tool you can ever have. And mate, go to any other country and what is rugby league? It's insignificant. Like, do you know what I mean? Ultimately, it just doesn't define who I am. That's it. The sport, love it. Everything it brings, great. But it doesn't have to define me, nor does it have to define any other player. So I was able to break out of that bubble. And that was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
It's so liberating, eh?
It is. And again, it's not a knock to the sport or anyone who's involved with it. It's about understanding that you're not defined by the sport that you've chosen to play professionally. So once I broke out of that and that persona and was able to release the ego and insecurities that were around that, I could just be myself and was able to develop my own personality and relationships based on who I am and not all I knew from a young age. So I jumped out of that and met a lot of people who also didn't give a shit about rugby league and were from all different walks of life, because when you're in that bubble, you're hanging around the same people, talking to the same people. So really open-minded conversations. Went to Thailand. I'd been there before on a bit of a fitness holiday, so it just seemed like the perfect place to get away. Went there and that was the business journey sort of started. And mate, I was living on an island in a scooter, like driving a scooter and just having the time of my life.
That's epic. So how long were you based in Thailand for?
Ended up being 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool though. Like that island life, although you need to hop in and out of it, but I had 2 cafes, a gym, so didn't pay to work out, didn't do my washing or cleaning, lived in this epic, all polished concrete jungle house with a tree through the middle with a mate. Didn't have to cook my food, rode a scooter, had 20 pieces of clothing max, because what are you going to wear? You barely wear clothing. Lived 5 minutes from the beach, and it was just like, what a life. And a great port to travel. Australia's hard to travel.
Yeah.
I was going here, there, and everywhere. So, mate, unbelievable experience. And being involved in business sort of set me up for the future. So, as I touched on, in hindsight, shit experience from a football perspective, but how could you take all that back given where I ended up at the end of the 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, because people ask you now, would you change it? And it may sound crazy to some people. You might say you wouldn't.
You have to say no. Yeah, you have to.
Because you wouldn't be as strong and as well travelled and well prepared for what's ahead.
And you got to embrace that. Like, that's a little recent tattoo I got, a more farty. I won't do it justice giving the explanation. I really need to nail it and lock it down. But it's just about embracing whatever happens and knowing that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But don't just embrace it, like love it. Understand that like, fuck, this has happened for a reason. What's next? Come out of it with a positive attitude and set the next target, set the next goal. So I kind of just applied that, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's worked for me, and I really love that perspective. I think you can apply that to anything.
Yeah. Because it's hard to do it justice how crazy the media was at that time when this saga happened. Like, you can sit here and talk about it, but like,
so mental.
I can only imagine putting myself in your shoes, and it wouldn't even do it justice, but like how difficult that would have been. And like makes complete sense why the fuck you wouldn't want to sit around Sydney or Melbourne for the time being.
I was getting hammered.
Yeah, getting hammered for like just practically not knowing what you were doing.
Yeah, well, people are going to make their perceptions off what they hear in the media. Fair play, that's what everyone does.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Until I was able to speak and humanise it and give the facts, it was not
and
good.
Which you did. And I think what amazed me, and a testament to you, but like, what made you want to come back after that? What made you want to come back and play again? Because 4 years out, like in anything of any craft,
it's a long time.
Difficult to come back in and come back in at the highest level. And you do. I would love you to speak about how you ended up at Storm because it's a pretty unique story in itself.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you get like what? First off, 2 questions to that: what made you want to come back, and then the journey to getting into Storm.
So I remember a couple of key moments. I picked up Craig Bellamy's book on a plane back to Thailand. Like, it wasn't a tell-all, but it gave me a good little bit of perspective. And the time was coming. They just won the premiership, and I was like, George, this is what I want to do. He's my manager. I was like, give him the same reasons that I explained to you. I was also trying to like find my entry point back to Australia.
Yeah,
that ran in parallel with like F45 and that whole journey, but I was just like, I'm going to contact him. I don't want you to contact him because it's just going to be same old, like a manager, blah, blah, blah. So I actually wrote him a letter.
No way.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's
pretty
old
crazy.
school, bro.
Yes, old school. I thought that's the way to approach Craig. So in the letter, I just detailed who I am, gave him the total ins and outs, full honesty of everything that happened, who I am as a person, and what I believe I can bring to the club. And then 2 days later, he doesn't have an email address.
Wait, so how big was this letter? Like, because that's a lot
probably
to
like,
compile.
Yeah, 3 pages.
Okay, that's fair. I was going to say, you couldn't have done that on A4.
Nah, 3 pages. And he obviously has an assistant because, someone got back to me and was like, oh, Craig would like to meet you 2 days later. I was like, fuck, that's really cool. Like, that's a good insight into who he is as a person. Let's catch up at a cafe. So we caught up down the road. It still had to be like a little bit low key then. We met up and he obviously wanted to suss me out and see if I was in good nick and was serious about what I'd said. And then that was only 3 days after I sent the letter, but I spoke to him. And by the end of the conversation, this half an hour conversation, he goes, oh, mate, I'm in. I'm all in. Let's do it. I've spoken to the powers that be and, we'll sort out the financials. Yeah, we'll sort out the financials, but let's do it. And I was just like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing. I did not expect that at all. I thought conversation, see what happens, go back and forth for a couple of months. So that, like, I can't explain how, and people can utilize this in any situation, in their own business environment, in their own position of employment or power amongst a group. But when someone puts faith in you like that, in a vulnerable position, wow, you're 10 feet tall, it lights a fire, and it did. So, I went away and instantly everything I'm doing is to be like in gratitude for, wow, you gave me this opportunity. Now I had to speak to the CEO and the owner. They weren't as keen, but I embraced that because I was like, the moment I get in front of them and can talk to them and show them who I am, they're going to be on board, which is what happened. Yeah. But what a moment. Unbelievable.
Wow, man. So he's like, he's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
Craig Bellamy. So
crazy.
Like, is he?
He's got a very different style. Like, he's a serious cat, but he can have a joke now. They reckon it's off the back of his grandkids, but so he loves the banter, but he just has an aura. So when he speaks, he commands attention, and he knows what he wants. He knows what his team's doing. He knows what your role is.
Yeah.
Just do your job.
I don't know about you. This is not to derail us with the conversation. I don't know about you, but when I used to talk to head coaches, it's never an easy conversation.
No,
like, just as like a human point. Like, they're not weird, but like intense. They're all quirky.
Yeah, of course. And he's still got an element of that. They all do. It's like some prerequisite. As soon as you take the head coach job, you've got to be like, you can't communicate.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, that's why I want to be a coach, because I just reckon I could change the game.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of an environment in elements where you just like would live and die for the coach. And there is an element of that, but it just the communication could be so much better. It doesn't need to be awkward. Players want honesty.
Especially in that environment.
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
Like make or break.
Because there's a way to do it.
A lot of players define themselves by the coach thinks, whether you're playing or not playing, and there's a way to sort of handle that. I think that could be done better.
Definitely.
Especially through my experiences. But
definitely.
Like to highlight this point of your journey, this is massive because you've literally gone through this absolute washing machine of like, you know, getting a point of your career where you're flying to then this stuff coming out and you having a 4-year suspension, and it's like, well, I want to come back, but the reality of it happening, I don't know. It's out of my control a little bit. And you've created an opportunity with arguably the best team in the NRL, and they've let you in, and they're like, yeah, we'll welcome you.
It's crazy.
And that to me is just surreal, but that makes me proud to be like a Melbourne Storm fan. That outlook of people.
Definitely.
So when you came back, I can imagine knowing you quickly in this podcast, you would have come back in some serious shape. Yeah.
I mean, I just opened the gym. So again, pretty crazy to look back on. Like I took all classes for the first 6 months. So I was up at, 5-ish, took the morning classes. I would go and do my weights, come back for the lunch class. I'd go and run or do some sort of footy work in the afternoon, and then I'd coach in the evening. I did that for the best part of 6 months, like crazy. And I come back in unbelievable nick. Unfortunately, I did my ACL 2 weeks in, which is, such a shame, but is what it is. But yeah, as you said, to give me that opportunity, there's some tidbits around that, and especially the way I embraced that injury.
Yeah.
It was such a emotional time, and I really felt like I'd let everyone down. Like they'd given me such a great chance, and what did I reward them with? Oh, sorry, I can't play for the rest of the year, so it sucked. But my mentality was like, I'm going to have an impact on the team, because when everyone looked at me around the club, I was smiling, I was supportive. When you see me train, I was training my ass off. I come back in near record time, which was my way of saying thank you to whoever had supported me, physio staff, coaches. The day I did my ACL, I was in the medical room crying, and Craig was the first person to call me, and he said, mate, if you want to go around again next year, you've got a contract, so don't worry about that. Just worry about your surgery. And I was just like, fuck, it's crazy.
What a guy.
Yeah, unbelievable. And then, just been an unbelievable ride, and had some ups and downs within that. To debut after 6 years and however many days, in a small room with, as you said, the brotherhood, and you got your mates who I'd known for a little bit, but a lot of my mates and the boys in tears, and just a crazy moment. And then to share the field, be a Storm player, number 195, like stuff I'll never forget. And it's the things that I've taken and the things that are now instilled in me will set me up for the rest of my life. That culture, I apply that to any business or experience. It's going to be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, because what do you think it is that's so unique about their culture? Like, because we hear about it, but like, what does it actually mean in the context of like why it's successful?
It's a lot of things, and it's built on foundations, years and years of just getting things right and having some of the same players and support staff involved, but it's just built on accountability, buy into a set system and structure. Like you come in and you either buy in, you know your role, you honor your role, or you're going to stand out, and you're not going to last here. So to have such a strong foundation and a strong value and mission in, hey, this is what we do here, this is how we do it. You either get on board or you get out. Like that's ruthless, but you have to be ruthless with your system, with your values, with your roles. Like that has to sit over the top of anything, and nothing can affect that. No player, no person, no event.
Yeah.
That stays rock solid. And then you're accountable to the players, to the coaches. Accountability to your playing group is another level. There's one thing being accountable to your coaches who work their ass off, mind you, which is on another level to, I think, most sporting organisations. Yeah. And every time you train and play, you're doing it for them as well, which sits amongst that. But accountable to the playing group, where they're so programmed into being, I guess, hanging the hat on effort, that if you're not putting effort in, or you're not trying, or you're not doing everything possible to be the best person you could be, then your mate's going to be looking at you going, what are you doing? Yeah. So when you get that accountability from your peers and your playing group, another level.
Yeah, it holds
another level. And then just the respect about where the club's been, where the club's going, and what you want to achieve. Only a premiership is deemed as success.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? So you couple all that together, with the foundation of who's come before you and the platform them laid. And then you're just a part of something that is just a constant churn of every day you turn up, give your best effort, and we all go on this journey together and can win premierships.
Mate, it's a beautiful journey.
Very cool.
Beautiful story, bro. Like,
I wish that for everyone.
Yeah.
When I talk about culture, whether I talk, I did a talk the other week to an accounting firm, and I was like, I just had to take a second. It wasn't emotional. I was like, I want you guys to experience this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want that for everyone.
Yeah.
I want people to feel comfortable, but I also people, like, the biggest thing I explained when I was at other clubs, it's like, when you're that nerdy guy in school or whatever, and you're trying really hard and you're doing everything possible, and everyone's like, you're a loser, whatever. That's how it is at other clubs. If you're doing extras, if you're doing extra video, if you're asking questions, if your diet's on point, whatever, you're like, oh, you're the odd one out. You might cop a bit of banter or whatever. When you're at the Storm, if you're not doing that, you're the odd one out. You're going to get hammered.
Yeah.
So that culture, that it just breeds success. Like it's elite. You know what I mean? And you can do that in any setting. People just need to drop their ego, their insecurities, have honest conversations, and everyone buy into, hey, what are we trying to do here? I'm trying to be the best I can be. The company's trying to be the best it can be. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's have open lines of communication, and let's fucking do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, right, when you speak about that, because obviously there's that human element that makes it so good. But even like the players, like the quality of players that come in, they don't come in like the whole player.
Nah.
But they leave the whole player all the time. And like arguably some of the best players play for Storm. They probably didn't come in with that credibility platform. That
none of them did actually.
Yeah, which is amazing, right? And I think that probably when you talk about like accounting firms and other businesses, when the right culture's there, everyone gets better at, their end product of what 100%. They're doing. So speaking, just to highlight some of this journey, obviously it's filled with a story of hard work and like, you've absolutely hustled through your childhood. You've got a taste of the NRL. You've gone through this washing machine. You've come back in and you've experienced a premiership and a great culture and club, and then start to build, I guess, a bit of a passion in business. It's like adversity, acceptance, growth, everything. But have you had a chance to kind of like reflect and appreciate like what you've been through?
I mean, I do, but moments like this are really good for that. I don't know if I'll ever truly reflect, because it's a positive and a negative, because I don't probably embrace moments and reflect the way I should, because I'm always thinking about what's next, and I've already got another 1 to 10 goals that I'm chasing, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, that's definitely a good thing, because I'm driven and it gives me purpose.
Yeah.
But at the other end, I'm like, I probably could work on just taking a moment and being like, how cool is that? But things like this give you those moments, and it's nice to reflect. And as I said, ultimately everyone's journey is going to be different, and none is more insignificant than the others. 100%. I've been in my own journey in the Storm. I've been around the best players in my position. You're celebrating guys that have at the absolute top, like they break a record every week.
Yeah.
Now that's not your path, but you've got to understand and have the self-awareness and just be realistic about, okay, well, this is where I'm at, but hey, I've gone through some epic shit in my life that's going to set me up on my own path.
Yeah.
And I'm super proud of that. So everyone needs to acknowledge that. And no mistake, no failure, no accomplishment is any less than the others. It's just individual to you. So embrace it and use that to ultimately keep you going on the right path.
Mate, beautifully said. Sandor Earl, mate. That's brought a tear to my eye. But no, that's powerful stuff, bro. I am going to wrap up now, but I do want to, thank you for coming on. Your story, honestly, I really do admire your story, bro, from the heart. Like,
thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
Like being an athlete, knowing what you went through, and coming back, more so the coming back to me is like truly amazing. So I was always very keen to hear your story, man. So really appreciate you coming on. The fight, I do want to plug it. You're fighting Justin Hodges.
Yes.
Is it next month? When is it?
February 12th in Townsville. So if you're a betting man, chuck your house on me for what do we want? Knockout in the second round? I don't know.
Yeah,
just to win. I'll be happy with the win. So.
So is it like a proper fight?
It's
like
an amateur fight.
So
headgear, pretty solid gloves. I've done a couple of sparring now. There's some damage to be done. I can tell you that.
You got a shiner on your right eye there.
Yeah, I did, mate. The other day I was sparring this lad. He's about 120. So that's the thing. Footy, 98, 100 kilos. I'm just like normal weight for my position. But in boxing, now I'm a heavyweight. So you're sparring with this Tongan bloke. He's big, like probably a foot, like a little bit taller than me. 120 kilos. Like,
here we go. Yeah.
But it was good fun. But yeah, that's sort of where you sit. But I'm enjoying the process. I'm loving it. So I just want to go up there, really pay respect to the sport and my coaches.
Yeah.
So I'm just focusing on, of course, I'd love to finish it, but just focusing on good technique, putting on a good performance, and the cash ain't too bad either.
Yeah. Right. So, plug. So wait, how many rounds is it?
3 2s.
Three
So
twos.
you got to go. You got to go. Yeah.
Right.
You got to come in there and start fast, punch first, punch last, all
Get
the
it.
rest of it. Get the volume up. But mate, it's amazing. I feel like I'm fit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's no fitness like boxing. Keep an eye out for it. Thanks again for coming on, brother. Awesome.